Happy April 16th. You know what, Blake? Fun fact. Today is the only time April 16th, 2024 will ever happen. Did you know that?
Is this a trick?
No, it's not a trick at all. Someone asked me on I think I might have shared this on here. Maybe I shared it on another podcast. Someone asked me recently, what gets you out of bed every day? And I had that answer. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty proud of it. Pretty proud of that answer. That there will never be another today again. Did you know that?
I like that.
It's a good mental shift. I know people listening or watching to this right now. They're like, yeah, it's just an ordinary Tuesday.
Yeah.
It could be.
What those people sound like.
Yeah. It could be an ordinary Tuesday, or it could be the one and only April 16th, 2024 that will ever exist. So why not make the most of it?
I feel like breaking out some Vanessa Carlton right now.
I don't know who that is, but I'm here for it.
Just an ordinary day. No? You ever seen White Chicks? Oh, man.
No, I don't see color.
Okay, well, it's the Marlon Brothers, okay? So, or the Wayans Brothers.
I know you're talking about the Marlon. What did you say, the Marlon?
Yeah, I was thinking.
He goes, it's Milton Bradley.
Do we just cut today? Is that enough? Have we done it?
Oh, welcome to the Culture Based Podcast, already in progress. If you didn't know, today is April 16th, 2024. We made it to episode 40. 40 years. Nope, 40 weeks. That's what it is. 40 weeks of podcasting.
Is this your golden podcast?
I think golden. Is that what it is? 40's golden?
No. Like your golden birthday is if like mine's July 9th. When I turned 9, it was my golden birthday.
Because I don't know what that means.
July 9th. Huh?
I don't know what that means. What do you mean golden birthday?
So there's a thing called a golden birthday. On the day of your month that you turn that age is your golden birthday.
Oh, so my birthday's January 14th. So you're saying when I turned 14, that was my golden birthday?
That was it. You missed it.
I got to be honest with you. That was a pretty great time in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was crushing it at 14.
So is this it? Is this our golden birthday?
I don't really know.
I think I just was connecting. Didn't you just have a monumental birthday?
I did. We don't have to talk about it.
We don't have to. But I think 40, flirty, and thriving is great.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't wait. I am eager for that day.
For what day?
The big 4-0. I am so pumped for it.
Oh, I thought you were already there. I thought you were like 45. I'm just kidding.
I'm not. We got to get into this shit.
We do. You know what? It's good that we're ribbing each other like this, and we've got some good banter going back and forth, because today we're going to talk about belief in each other. And Blake, I just want to say up front, I believe in you.
Oh. I also believe in you. I feel like that would miss if I didn't say that.
I do appreciate it. I do appreciate you sending that back to me, because that's what we're going to talk about today. That this belief is cyclical, right? It's not just the company believing in their team, and it's not just the team believing in the company. It is cyclical. But before we get into that, I want to remind you that we are here at the Culture Base to help leaders know what they're about, show where they're going, and develop a scalable team to get them there. Emphasis on the scalable, because we're going to hit that at the end of today's episode. Stay tuned for that. If you're listening on an audio podcast platform, thank you so much for listening. We would love for you to leave a 5-star rating and review. It would really help get this content out further to people like you who could benefit from it. We release content on YouTube as well. If you're watching there, hello, good to see you. You get to see Blake's fresh new haircut.
And jazz hands.
I never understood why they call them jazz hands, because it's really the fingers doing the work. At least what you just did was more finger. I think jazz hands might be actually more hand. It's more handsy. Okay, cool. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Subscribe, like, ring the bell. See the jazz hands or the jazz fingers. We gave you both today, so I don't want to hear any complaints, which we never do. On social media, you can find us at The Culture Base, BASE, on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, all the places. Or you can also find us at theculturebase.com. Learn more about us and how we can help you develop a scalable team that you need. All right, let's get into it. Today, we're going to talk about belief in each other. Sorry, I had to scroll up for a second and make sure I have that thing. You ever have to do that? What was I talking about again? Right in the middle of when you're talking, you're just like, what was I saying?
Let's
When
get
you'll wait till you're 40.
ethical.
Ethical. All right, here it is. Great teams are what make a company successful and scalable. But part of having a great team is having a sense of trust, right? And this trust can't be given just in one direction. I decided if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to do this whole intro with hand motions. So this trust can't be just given in one direction, right? Has to be a two-way street. Thus, thriving in a cycle of belief in each other, cyclical circles, the whole thing, feeling it, working it, like Kevin Nealon and Happy Gilmore. Remember that?
This looks like an 80s workout video right now. If you knew everything and just watch it, you're gonna be like, this is right.
I appreciate your comment on my physique. So but yeah, this whole trust thing is cyclical, and so it's one of those things that once you get it in motion, it's probably pretty easy. It's much like culture, right? It's pretty easy to maintain. Not easy. I don't want to say easy. It's less effort to maintain, more effort to start, right? There's a common saying that trust is trust is earned in pennies but spent in dimes.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the things I was looking up, getting prepared for today, of course, whenever we're going to talk about something, first thing I do is I say, Lord, what would Simon Sinek say? And let me tell you what Simon says about this. He says a team is not a group of people who work together. No. Don't be misled. A team is a group of people who trust each other.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Have you ever heard I think it was Adam Grant. Do you know who Adam Grant is?
No. Did he play Darth Vader in the new Star Wars?
Close. He has a podcast.
Okay.
big people to come on. And he had Simon Sinek and Brene Brown on it.
Ooh.
It knocked me off multiple times.
Of course.
Because those two people, especially like
Simon prom king Sinek, and prom queen.
Yeah, exactly. And Brene Brown is just so connected when it comes to vulnerability being the way you get to trust, right? And so, I'm sure we'll get to that, but like when we're thinking about trust, it is so easy to overly expect trust and respect and all these other things based off your position, and to not realize that there is no other place that actually has that mentality. Like we have to build trust, and maybe in parenting, maybe sometimes we're like, they should just respect me and should just trust me. And you see how positionally just weak and fragile that mentality is, because those are the relationships we see that like most brokenness come from is parenting and in our workplace. People get hurt and not able to have a response back. And that's just where like that's unfortunate, and it needs to not be that way. And when we think about like trust allows us to do something that a lot of other things don't do. And trust allows us to take risk and to take ownership of that which we have. So when I trust Dustin in something, I trust that if I'm like, hey man, you've got this thing and I've got this thing, that means I'm not going to be over his back about the thing that he has, because I trust that he's got it. Now, if I never met Dustin and I was like, hey, I really trust you to watch my kids right now, that would be stupid. Okay, I don't know anything about Dustin. There has to be, like he talked about, this building of trust that happens. And so there are these expectations from both sides, from your leadership team to your field team. Like both of those teams have to be able to give a certain level of vulnerability and trust in order to make that relationship work well. Okay. And that's why when we talk about core values mattering, this is why. Because if your values don't line up to some level, there will be no trust, because you say that person values something like getting the job done no matter what, even cutting corners. I'm a not cutting corners person. I am not going to be able to trust that person because their value, which is a core value, is so offset from what I believe. I'm not going to be able to trust. So that's why core values matter here.
Yeah.
But when we look at our organizations, here I'm going to give some stats here because like some of these are just, they're nasty. Okay. Only 21% of American workers strongly agree that and trust their leadership of their organizations. And that's down from 24% in 2019. Whew. That's not good. Like that's, I would say that's bad.
Yeah.
That
1 in
shows
5.
1 in 5. That's like, there is a problem here, guys. And then business leaders, and I know this because I see it, when you go ask any business leader, how many people in your organization trust you? They're going to immediately be like, almost all of them. I'd probably say 90% of my organization trust. They're going to be so overly optimistic on this. But when you ask them how many of their organization do you trust, they're going to hem-haw. They're not going to say it. They're going to skirt around it. But I'm going to guess that they don't trust many people. So how can this be a two-way street? And here's another stat. Only 60% of workers feel that their employers trust them. So if they think, like, I don't trust many, and the response is that people are like, yeah, we can tell. We don't feel like you trust. There is nothing that the leadership team, the owners, the organization is doing to show that they trust it. And trust, like, you can make it sound like it's this thing that sits below the surface, but it is visible. Okay, there are things we can do that give an appearance to show I trust you. Okay, and we're gonna dive into those here pretty soon.
Yeah, so just off the top, I want to make sure that everybody understands that we're using the term belief and trust kind of interchangeably here. And the reason for that is because in order to believe in the people that you work with, there has to be that sense of trust there. And so trust and belief, I think, go hand in hand, along with like an honesty kind of personal value, really. Like I believe in Blake to show up to this podcast recording every week. I believe in Blake to help build this business, and so there's that trust there where I know when we're not together, he's in Indiana, I'm in Georgia, there's a trust there that we're both working hard on this thing. We don't need to constantly be checking in on each other as far as what that looks like. There's a mutual trust there, and that's where I want to really get into. So we want to quickly, in the second half of this podcast, just share with you 6 quick ways that we believe that you can grow mutual trust in your organization. I want to say right off the top, there are way more than 6. I want to say that this is not the end all list. This is just things that we have gathered over our years and helping build the right cultures within the teams, and places that we've failed and places that we've succeeded. And so we want to just kind of set that expectation right out the gate. But we alluded to it already a little bit earlier, Blake. But number 1 on this list to grow mutual trust with your organization is appropriate vulnerability. Now, I use the word appropriate there because there's a lot of things, obviously, morally, that may not be appropriate to share depending on who you're talking to. But even more than that, I would say in your org structure, you don't necessarily want to cause panic or an uproar or complete chaos within your organization for no good reason. And that's where appropriate vulnerability comes in. There's an opportunity for you to be vulnerable, usually more after the fact than during the fact. But I think each and every case, there's a wisdom that comes into play there. If you feel like, you know what, I really don't trust my team enough to be vulnerable with them, that's a problem. That's an indicator. That's an opportunity for you to lean in and say, we need to create some type of atmosphere where we're at least contributing. Both of us, both leader and employee, are both contributing some sense of appropriate vulnerability.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think with vulnerability, it's risky, right? Like that's why it's vulnerable. You are taking a stance, and somebody has to, like, there are those in your organization who will take risks in vulnerability, and there are those who follow in vulnerability.
Hmm.
Not everyone is going to take the leap in vulnerability. Especially, I would venture, most likely a lot of introverted people may be more hesitant to do that. A lot of people who have been hurt in the past, less apt to do that. Is that their fault? No. Okay. And it's not your fault. But as a leader, I would encourage you to take the role of vulnerability. Okay. So, as a leader, if you're not sure that they're going to be vulnerable, be vulnerable. If you're trying to get them to take ownership of a mistake they made, step into a place and talk about a mistake you made. Okay. This is appropriate vulnerability. But if you just expect vulnerability and you're not willing to give it, that's not appropriate.
Yeah, and I would say that that goes both ways too. Just again, this mutual thing. So not just from if it's you expect it from your team as the leader, but there's an aspect to all of these of leading up, right? There's an aspect of all of these where you can lead upward on the org chart and you can set the appropriate example for any of these things that we're talking about. Second thing is we want to ask questions, and not just any question just for the sake of questions, but I want to just start this by saying if there's a conversation that you're having with someone and they're telling you about their weekend and your only reply is, wow, that's really nice, and then you move on. If you can't find one little opportunity in there to ask a question, to probe a little bit more, like that's a problem. Like, just in the sense of, like, Blake tells me about his weekend, he went fishing. I go, how was the weather? Or who was with you? Or how many fish did you catch? That shows that I'm interested, and that interest builds trust. And so asking questions is good in just a general term.
Yeah.
Also, asking the right questions. What do you have to say about that, Blake?
Yeah. We ask too many ambiguous questions,
Mm,
or questions that we have what we know we want to get out of the as an answer, but we don't say that. Like, hey, did are you going to get this done? Too ambiguous. um I'm giving you this, I need this done by this time. Okay, still sounds specific. It's not. I need to make sure, and I've had this with leaders and with even not leaders in our organization, where I'm like, hey, I need this done at this time, and I didn't tell them what done was. I didn't
yeah,
give them a clear, hey, did you get 4 of these done in the last hour?
yeah.
If I'm not clear and concise in my questions, then shame on me. And I
Mhm,
know that that's like, well, when are they ever going to take ownership? As soon as you're clear about what you want them to take ownership in. If
mhm.
you're not clear about what you want them to take ownership in, then you can't hold them accountable to something that you weren't clear on. So this is
Yeah,
just where, when you're asking questions, you've got to get more specific. You need to be more measurable on the work side, obviously. You need to be more measurable, like the whole SMART acronym, get into that. Okay.
yeah.
Um, the specific, measurable, attainable, time bound, and
Is it reachable? No.
realistic.
Realistic, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say too, with the asking the questions, I see this all the time, Blake, and you might push back a little bit on this. I think there are certainly times for it, but more times than not, please don't say to the person that you're giving instruction to, okay, now repeat back to me what I said so I make sure that you got it. Sometimes that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Most of the time, if you don't like maybe it's the way that you do it. I don't know. Most of the time, I feel like that breaks trust because they feel like you're not capable of understanding what it is that you're communicating with them.
Mm.
So I do see it appropriate in some situations,
Sure.
especially if the relationship is there. But don't you can ask the right questions is what I'm getting at. You can ask the right questions without talking down to someone. That's what I'm
Yeah.
getting
So yeah, I agree there. I think that there is a building of that maybe that's in the beginning of building trust.
at.
We call that back briefing. And I do like the idea of, especially on task based items,
Mm,
because it's not always just because I'm asking someone to back brief doesn't mean I don't trust what they said. In fact, it means I don't trust what I said. Like,
Yes.
hey, like, I need you, would you back brief me on this? Because I'm not sure. Like, I want to make sure and see the areas that I
Yeah.
wasn't clear on. So go ahead
Yeah.
and tell me what you're doing for today's stuff. Oh,
That's a great preface to put it back on yourself and not go, listen, dummy. You just kind of glazed over while I was giving you those instructions, and I'm not convinced that you understand what the task is. So could you just repeat back to me so I can make sure that you listen? Let's see the difference in what Blake just said versus, and you would never obviously say what I just said, but there's the tone or the implication of it is everything. And so being able to set that up the way that Blake just set it up is a way for you to build trust, because then they're going, wait, I get to give you feedback for real? That's crazy. Which we're going to talk about that in a second. Third thing, give honor and credit where it's due, publicly and privately. Both. Don't just do one or the other. If you only give praise and honor where it's due publicly and never privately, it'll appear like a show. It will appear fake. If you only ever do it privately, you will appear selfish, that you don't want to praise that person publicly. So make sure you do it both publicly and privately.
Yep. I don't have anything for that. That's
Perfect. In that giving credit, there's two things I want to say about this, and then we'll quickly move on. Number one, I love this. I always love the quote. I'm not sure who first said it. I think I heard it from a pastor one time. But great leaders give credit and take blame. I love that. I live by that rule, and it can hurt sometimes. But guess what? That's the price of being a leader. Also, this goes a long way in believing the best. You want to, if you want your team to believe the best about you, or you want your boss to believe the best about you, the best way to do it is to give honor and credit where credit is due, publicly and privately.
Yep.
The best way to do it. If you can't believe the best in each other, that's what this whole episode is about, right? Believing in each other. And so you have to believe the best, even when they make a decision that you weren't in the room for, right? That you're going to be like, I'm going to believe the best, that's the best decision that needed to be made, even though I wasn't in that meeting and I don't need to be in that meeting. But because I have built this mutual trust with this person, we're going to believe the best about it.
Yeah.
And that's how we're going to operate.
You know, there was, I don't remember who it was who said this, but there's so much that we think about in leadership is about putting into people to make them the right thing. And I know it was a coach. They said that their job is not to put into them any magic. The magic's already there. How do you draw that out of people? That's what a good coach and a good leader who's able to build this type of trust can bring the magic, right? Like, it's not about putting it in, it's about drawing it out. And when you believe that differently, that they're on the first one, that they're just dummies who need something more, that's not good. When you think there is magic in everyone, and it's about drawing that magic out and helping them become the best version of them, that's when there's going to be a loyalty between each other.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Breezing right on through this list too, because we're halfway through the 6. So far, we've got appropriate vulnerability, ask the right questions, give honor and credit where it's due, publicly and privately. Number 4, open communication loops. Open communication loops. This is where, again, it's that I'm going to step in and give you the information, not only just the information that you need, but maybe the information that you might secretly desire as well. So there's a negative kind of culture trend I see a lot in business. I wish it was strictly in the corporate world, but nonprofit is just as bad, where it's information hoarding, right? I'm not going to share this with you because you don't need to know this. And if you knew it, you would use it against me, or blah, 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 blah. Just fear driven, right? So 9 times out of 10, there's very little harm that's done in appropriate communication loops of being able to say, this is what's happening. I need you to understand that this is coming up. Here's why, right? We hate explaining why, but it's super necessary. These open communication loops of being able to walk in and say, hey, this is what's going on, or hey, just so you know, boss, this is where we're headed. I know you don't really need opinion on it, but I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you where we're going anyway, so that when you see us there, you know why. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. I like that you said that there are very few times that not sharing why doesn't like benefit, right? Like there is sharing why is almost always quicker than not sharing why. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like, gosh,
Feels like you're slowing down.
So much more time to share this. The thing is, you're going to have to anyway. And would you rather do that one time concisely to give a big picture, or would you rather do that fragmented across different stories that got created across different people and different now? Instead of that why being able to be spread by someone else, you're having to spread it every time. You did this to yourself. Okay. So there is a part of this that's sharing wise quicker. Now, is all information supposed to be shared openly? Maybe not. The way we set it up is we're an open book. You can come and ask any question. Okay. So there is an openness to, hey, come and ask the questions you want to ask. However, I know that I want to make sure that I'm educating at the same time. So if someone says, hey, I want to know how much we made last year, what does that even mean? How much do we make? How much revenue? How much income? How much profit? How much gross profit? How much net profit? Do you understand those terms? No? Okay. I don't mind sharing. Let's get into this because I actually think it's healthy to share that kind of stuff. But to share it in a way in which you can help make sure they understand, because you say we made $1 million. What does that mean? And was that good? Is that bad? Like, depending on where you're at, that could be horrible. So it's like, how do you communicate that? How is very important in open communication loops. Doesn't mean no, because again, the why, it's always shorter to explain why than to not explain why.
Yep. Fifth way to build mutual trust in your organization is collaboration. I believe that if you can fail together, then you grow together in a mutual trust. And you can collectively do those things together. So I really do believe that anything that you can do to create a culture or an environment of collaboration where you not just win together, but you fail together, and it's more of a we, right, than a this person did or this person did not. If you can start to use that type of language and build that in the things that you're working on, and you're not working in silos, but you're working collectively as a group, as a unit, all those words and phrases go into that kind of mutual trust benefactor.
Yeah. And collaboration and creativity play together quite often. And this is just like, think about when you were a kid at school. When you played with other kids, you started to trust them. You started to trust their strengths and understand their weaknesses intuitively. And not necessarily you were told, I'm really good at this. And then like, man, I could throw the football a mile away. And then you see them throw the football and it did not go a mile. And you're like, oh, okay, well, now I know where I need to trust and not trust. And I can't run to the end zone on this kid because he's never going to get it there. But it just, kids who play together start to trust each other. And I think that's true in business too.
Love it. Love it. The final way that we're going to mention today to grow mutual trust with your organization is two-way accountability. Blake, you want to talk about that? Wait, I'll let you take a sip first. Go ahead. Everybody, hold on.
I was like,
wait. Blake wanted a sip of his tea.
It's coffee.
Is it a coffee?
It is a coffee.
Oh,
this is like the latest I can be on a coffee.
Yeah, it's getting to the end of coffee time.
It is. But okay, so
two-way accountability.
Two-way accountability. Thank you. I mean, the best belief you can have in someone is being able to hold them accountable to a standard that you know that they can hit. Okay. And helping them to get to that place where they can push a little beyond themselves is belief in that person. If they tell you, I can only do 3 of these, and you go, okay, well, then you believed, first off, you believe whatever they said in their own mind. And sometimes your belief in someone helps them grow as people. So it doesn't mean if they're like, I can only do 3, and you're like, no, I think you can do 90 in an hour. Okay, that's not realistic. Like keeping realistic to how to help them get to another place, like that type of level of accountability is inspiring. Okay, that's what people want in some level of accountability, is inspiration at times. But having standards by which you hold people accountable to those things helps them grow and get to that point. And this two-way accountability is the fact that those in the field can hold those in the office, or however that is, however your paradigm is there, hold them accountable to certain standards. So it's not just one direction accountability. You guys need to hit this, otherwise. Like, what is the otherwise for those holding those in accountability?
Yeah, I see this come into play quite a bit with your processes, right? A lot of leaders love to put in the process, but they don't want to follow the process. And that's not, and that nothing will break trust more than a leader who implements a process but will not follow that process that they implemented because they're the leader.
Yeah.
Right. That is trust murder. Like it will kill it 100%. 100%. Any final thoughts on these 6 things that we mentioned today? Okay, cool. So I want to prep real quick. Next week, we're going to be back, episode 41. We're going to start a brand new series, something that we've been working on behind the scenes for a long, long time, called Are You Scalable? We mention in our mission statement right at the front every single week that we're here to help leaders know what they're about, right? Show where they're going, but we're also here to help them develop a scalable team to get them there. Blake, what can we expect in this next series, Are You Scalable?
Yeah, we're going to jump into, first off, what is scalability and at what level? I mean, even as we talk about scalability, first off, your product, your service, whatever it is, has to hit a certain baseline understanding of scalability. And like, are you trying to sell horses for transcommunication or transportation? That may not be the best thing for today's day and age, because there are a lot of other vehicles by which transportation happens.
He goes, nah, but we do horse.
We do horses. But it doesn't, that's not scalable at this point. So there is a certain base level understanding of, is it for today's market? Is it for right now? Or is this like later on type of scalability? So you have to be able to get to that point. But one of the, hardest parts is that we can come up with those understandings. Like, visionaries and leaders are really good to know how to scale that thing, but it all falls apart. And I hear so many times from business leaders, gosh, if I just had someone or a team or the right people, or gosh, if these idiots weren't turning over all the time. I hear that stuff all the time. It's like, how do you help develop a team that scales your scalable product or service? That's what it's about.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I can't wait to get into this series. I'm not sure how long the series is going to be. It'll go until it stops. But it's going to be a powerful one. Make sure you tune in for that. Tell your friends, all that stuff. We can't wait to be with you again next time on the Culture Base Podcast.